Hi, everybody. This is Tony Palmeri. I'm a professor of communication studies at the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, and I also maintain the Tony Palmeri's Media Rants blog, and I write State of the State for the Oshkosh Independent. This video is a summary of a workshop that Dr. James Kruger, who's a political science professor at UW Oshkosh, it's a workshop he and I did called Voting 101. We did this workshop for undergraduates a few weeks ago on the UW Oshkosh campus. I thought it might be a good idea to do it for all of you also. And it's based on the idea that we are having an election on April 7th in Wisconsin. As you know, some states, because of the coronavirus, have delayed their primaries. As of now, I'm recording on March 15th, Wisconsin has not yet announced any delay of its April 7th primary. If that does change, I of course will make a follow-up and let everyone know. I know my video quality here is not great. This is kind of like an experiment, if you will, so bear with me. I think you'll find some of the information in this video to be valuable, and of course I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you. So we've got some upcoming election dates coming in Wisconsin. April 7th is the spring election and presidential preference primary. That April 7th election is the one I'm going to spend most of my time on today in this video, but you should also know that there's an election coming up on August 11th. That's the partisan primary for offices like State Senate, State Assembly, U.S. Congress, District Attorney, and partisan county offices. And then, of course, on November 3rd of 2020 is the general election, and that's when we'll vote for president, Congress, state Senate, and state assembly. Now, always in Wisconsin, remember to bring your photo ID. There's a really good website you can go to. It's called Bring It. Here it is right here, bringit.wisconsin.gov, and it will tell you all that you need to know about the photo ID requirements. It's especially important for you young people out there, students, to look at sites like that because your voting requirements may be a little bit more complicated than others. By far, the best website to go to in Wisconsin if you're interested in voting is myvote.wisconsin.gov. This will inform you about everything you need to know about voting in our state. Registration, what is on your ballot. You can find information about candidates. You can find information about election dates, numerous other things. So I would bookmark that site if I were you, myvote.wi.gov. Now, lots of people like to vote absentee, and I'm now speaking from a city of Oshkosh perspective. You may request and mark an absentee ballot in person at the city clerk's office. Absentee voting in the city clerk's office is the 2 weeks prior to an election. That is, if you want to actually go to City Hall and vote early, you do it the 2 weeks before the election. As of this recording, the city clerk has not yet announced the exact dates of that early voting. However, it will be announced, and if you do go vote early, remember it's the same voter ID requirement that you would have at a regular polling place. Here is some information about the city clerk. Her name is Pam Ubrig. You can always give her a call at 236-5011. There's an email address, and I've also here got the website address where you can find about information about city elections. You know, one of the benefits of early voting is that you can avoid long lines. None of us like to go vote on days when we know that there will be quite a few people there, especially if you're working or are a student. It might be a good idea to do it early so you can avoid those long lines. And of course, in this time period we're in, with concerns about the virus and its spread, it might be an especially good idea to try to vote early if possible. So what will be on that April 7th ballot when you go to vote? Well, go to myvote.wi.gov to see a sample ballot. I'm going to show you what's going to be on my sample ballot when I go to vote. Yours will, if you're in Wisconsin, yours will look similar. I'll highlight what some of the differences will be. So everyone's going to have a presidential preference. You'll have a chance to vote in the Democratic primary or the Republican primary. There's going to be a city council race in the city of Oshkosh. There are candidates for Oshkosh Board of Education. There are 36 county supervisors, and the way the county works, every seat is up for election every 2 years. So chances are good that if you're in Winnebago County, you will see the names of county supervisor candidates, although I've heard that some of the districts maybe don't have challengers. There's going to be a Justice of the Supreme Court election on April 7th. There's a District 2 Court of Appeals race. Here's District 2 right here. It's where we live in Oshkosh. It's District 2. And there's going to be a statewide referendum question. I'll talk about that shortly also. Now, in the presidential preference, Wisconsin is known as an open primary state. What does that mean? It means you can only vote in one party primary. So suppose you're a Republican. Well, this year, President Trump is the only Republican in the Republican primary. If you may choose to vote in the Democratic Party primary, even though you're not a Democrat, but you get a chance to have a say in who the Democrats nominate to run against President Trump. But if you vote in the Democratic primary, you then can't also vote in the Republican. So here's the names that will appear on the Democratic primary. It will be Tulsi Gabbard, Amy Klobuchar, John Delaney, Deval Patrick, Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg, Tom Steyer, Elizabeth Warren, Michael Bennet, Michael Bloomberg, and Joe Biden. Now, of course, Amy Klobuchar has dropped out of the race, but her name will still be on the ballot. John Delaney has dropped out of the race. Deval Patrick, yes, he was in this race and he dropped out. Andrew Yang has dropped out. Pete Buttigieg has dropped out. Tom Steyer is no longer in the race. Elizabeth Warren is no longer in the race. Michael Bennet is no longer in the race. And yes, Michael Bloomberg, with all his hundreds of millions of dollars, was not able to buy this nomination. He has dropped out. So that leaves us with Joe Biden, Tulsi Gabbard, and Bernie Sanders. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, the congresswoman from Hawaii, is polling very low, but she has not officially dropped out of the race. Bernie Sanders, of course, is still in the race. For a short time, he was the front runner. And former Vice President Joe Biden is now, as I record in middle of March, is considered to be the front runner. If you are a Bernie Sanders fan, he, of course, has to win Wisconsin. He lost Michigan, lost most of the Super Tuesday states. And so really, Wisconsin might be Mr. Sanders or Senator Sanders' only hope to demonstrate that he still has a possibility of winning the nomination. President Donald Trump is the only Republican in the Republican primary. What about in the Oshkosh Common Council race? Well, we've got 6 candidates that are running for 3 seats. You can vote for as many as 3 of the candidates. You don't have to vote for 3. If there's only one candidate that fires you up, you can vote for that one person. I believe they call that bullet voting, but you can vote for as many as 3. The candidates are Matt Mugerauer, he is one of the incumbents. Bill Miller, he is also one of the incumbents. Bill Miller was appointed to his current seat when the current mayor, Lori Palmeri, yes, we are related, when she became mayor, she left her common council seat vacant, and the council appointed Bill Miller to replace her for the 1 year that was left on her term, and now he's running for the seat in his own right. Lindsay Erickson is a challenger in the race. Michael Ford is a challenger in the race. Danny Garcia is a challenger in the race. And Robert Wilcox is a challenger in the race. So if you're one of those anti-incumbent people, Erickson, Ford, Garcia, and Wilcox are the challengers in this race. And I'll tell you in a little bit how to get more information about all of these folks. What about the Supreme Court race? Well, Dan Kelly, who was appointed by former Governor Scott Walker to the Supreme Court, is now running for a 10-year term, and he's facing Jill Karofsky. They've had a very contentious campaign going on. Of course, these two in the, I believe it was the February primary, they came out number 1 and 2. And I think this is going to be a very, very close race. Court of Appeals judge for District 2, Lisa Neubauer, is the incumbent in this race, and she's being challenged by Paul Bugenhagen Jr. I believe he's from the Waukesha area, and he's running for this seat. These are the kind of seats that a lot of people don't know much about, and it's important to try and get informed before you actually go vote on April 7th or before you vote early. For Winnebago County Supervisor, I would urge you to go to the county website. I've got the address here, and find out who your supervisor is. And you can go further and find out if your supervisor is being challenged. We've also got a race for the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education. There are 3 candidates on the ballot. You can vote for as many as 3. The incumbents are Barbara Herzog and Bob Peschel. The challenger is Jen Sullivan. If you're living in Oshkosh and if you're concerned about the school closings in Oshkosh, and the current school board has looked like it's very open and very favorable toward closing schools, usually they say for financial reasons, you might want to look closely at Ms. Sullivan's candidacy, because I know that she's been very skeptical and critical of the way the school district is going about closing the schools. So just again, if you're interested in school issues, take a close look at that race and contact these candidates and ask them about school closures and where they stand on it. So how do I get informed about candidates and issues? Well, for presidential candidates, I'll just tell you what I do. I like to go to candidate websites. I like to look at their social media presence. I think that tells me a lot about them. This year, I've been spending a lot of time going to National Public Radio, npr.org. They've got a really nice section this year that gives an in-depth coverage of the issue stands of a variety of candidates. So if you're into issues and you think that's important in voting, especially for a presidential candidate, the NPR site is very good. The New York Times this year has a very, very good interactive site. And I've got the website address here. You can probably just Google New York Times Interactive. And it does an excellent job of giving, again, pretty in-depth views of all of the candidates. It's got a tool where you can see how you line up with each of the candidates. I've personally found it pretty helpful. For state and local races, the League of Women Voters always does a candidate forum. I'm taping this on March 15th. The League of Women Voters Forum is scheduled for March 16th at 6:30 at Oshkosh City Hall. They have not yet announced the cancellation, to my knowledge, due to the virus. If you prefer not to go to an outside gathering because of the virus or other concerns, that forum is usually rebroadcast many, many times before the election. If the league does have to cancel, I'm sure they'll find many other ways to keep us informed. I believe they've invited city council, school board, and county board candidates. WisconsinVote.org is a very, very good website for staying informed, especially about state level candidates. You can learn a lot about the Supreme Court candidates from that site. I also go to candidate websites and social media. Every person running for the city council, for example, I believe has a social media presence and or a website. You can find contact information for them. You can find some positions on issues. The Oshkosh Herald, excellent newspaper. You've probably seen their hard copy. Maybe get it delivered to your home. You can also find them at oshkoshherald.com. They're doing some election coverage. The Oshkosh Northwestern, the Gannett paper, they of course do election coverage. Miles McGuire's Oshkosh Examiner. He's not necessarily covering candidates very specifically, but Miles McGuire's Oshkosh Examiner really does an outstanding job of covering the issues that candidates for these various offices, especially locally, will be dealing with. I have found that to be really an invaluable resource. WOSH 1490, they have got a podcast. You can find election coverage there. And my good friend Cheryl Hentz does Eye on Oshkosh. She usually does candidate interviews. You can find it on Oshkosh Cable Access Television. I'm not sure if she's done any yet this year, but I've over the years have been very, very informed about candidates from watching Cheryl's show. So keep your eye out for that. Now, there will be a statewide referendum on the ballot this year. I think this is called Marcy's Law. On the ballot, it will say, Question 1, Additional Rights of Crime Victims. Shall Section 9 of Article 1 of the Constitution, which gives certain rights to crime victims, be amended to give crime victims additional rights to require that the rights of crime victims be protected with equal force to the protections afforded the accused, while leaving the federal constitutional rights of the accused intact, and to allow crime victims to enforce their rights in court. Now, my guess is something like this will definitely pass because it's got this kind of feel-good language and no one wants to see crime victims treated poorly. However, I would encourage everyone to do some research on this. We do have a principle of due process. So while we try to make sure, obviously, that victims are treated with the utmost dignity and respect, we have to make sure that we don't harm what's called due process. The accused do have rights. In fact, that's what separates the United States of America from so many other countries in the world, that the accused here do have rights. So let's make sure that we don't undermine that principle through sheer ignorance, that is, by voting for something that looks and sounds good, but not understanding what it means. So go to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, find whatever information that you can to see what this statewide referendum really is about. I'm not taking a stand on it yet. I just haven't had the chance yet to do enough research on it myself, but I'm always a little bit cynical about referendum questions that look too good to be true. They usually are. If you do have questions, I would say question the candidates. And if you've got questions for me, you can reach me by email, palmeri.tony@gmail.com. You can Google my blog, Tony Palmeri's Media Rants, and you can see me at the Oshkosh Independent with my State of the State column. One of the reasons why I did this video is because, as you may have heard, UW Oshkosh is moving its classes because of the coronavirus. We will be moving pretty much all of our classes except for science labs. We'll be moving them all online, and so I'm kind of considering this little video to be somewhat of a practice run for what I'll probably be doing a lot of over the next few months, hopefully not much longer than that, because I love face-to-face teaching. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.